It's the last time you see pictures of all of the family together.
When that family was entering the house, he heard the gunshots.
911. Someone just shot our neighbor. Who shot them? We don't know.
There was a small gun safe. It had been pried open. Was this just a home invasion that went bad?
Sit there and think, what kind of relationship did they actually have?
This is not the all-American family that everybody might think they are.
In my opening statement, I told the jury panel, you're about to hear a tale of subterfuge, deception, and greed.
December 2003, Sugar Land, Texas. Kent and Tricia Whitaker and their two sons, Bart and Kevin, have called this affluent suburb home for more than a decade. It's a perfect fit for their upscale lifestyle.
Sugar Land was an amazing place to grow up. It was a community focused on faith, focused on friendships, relationships, a really tight-knit community. The Whitaker family was a pillar in the community. I attended a private school there in Sugar Land, and Kevin did too, and we were fast friends. The Whitaker family did so much together, whether it be fishing trips or camping trips, times on the lake. Kent and Tricia maintained that really sweet closeness with their kids and that high level of trust and communication. They love to experience life as a family.
I was the Whitakers' next door neighbor. They were very normal, kind, empathetic people. They seemed not troubled, unburdened. Life is good. That was my general vibe.
To friends and neighbors, the Whitakers seem to have it all. A happy family where 19-year-old Kevin looks up to his 23-year-old brother, Bart.
Kevin was very humble. He was a man of integrity, of character, incredibly honest. The guy was smart, very engaging. Bart was a little bit more quiet. You didn't know necessarily what he was thinking like you did Kevin.
Kent Whitaker is the co-owner of a thriving construction company. A hard worker, his financial success means he can provide his family with everything they might want. His wife, Tricia, is a dedicated part-time elementary school teacher.
She loved and knew every kid in every class every single year. And the interesting part was that she didn't have to work, right, because of Kent's job. But it told you a lot about her heart.
On December 10th, 2003, Kent and Tricia plan a special night out for the family to celebrate Bart's graduation from Sam Houston State University. At dinner, they present their son with a $4,000 Rolex watch as a graduation gift.
I know what a Rolex costs, and he bought a Rolex as a graduation gift. That's not an everyday thing.
Kent is a proud dad and takes photos so they'll have a permanent record of Bart's achievement.
I've seen this. I've seen those. Sitting there smiling like that. Very happy.
It's the last time you see pictures of all of the family together.
Someone just shot our neighbor. Who shot them? We don't know.
I was there when they died. That was real, and I can't necessarily make sense of what I saw that night. I was sitting at my computer. I heard gunshots. I immediately dart out the front door. I get about midway down our sidewalk, and I see Kent Whitaker laid on his back. You could see his body lit up by their front porch lights. And he was saying, Brandon, we've been shot. Call 911.
What kind of injuries do they have? I don't know. They just been shot.
Brandon's father, Cliff Stanley, rushes to the house and discovers that Kent Whitaker has been shot in the chest.
My dad runs out and starts rendering aid. I mean, multiple trips, back and forth with house, just doing what we can. It felt awful. It was gruesome. It was a horror movie.
While police race to the scene, another 911 call comes from inside the Whitaker home. It's Bart Whitaker.
I've been shot. Where is your wound? In the arm, my shoulder. I think I can't with my arm. Okay, who else has been shot in the house with you? It's my mom and my dad and my brother. Oh, God, I can't. I need you to hang on, Bart. I've got help on the way, okay? Do you know who shot you? No. Dark in here. Okay, when he left, Bart, did he leave out your back door? Yeah, I chased him that way.
When I arrived on scene, it was very chaotic. There was ambulances, there were multiple police cars, fire trucks, a helicopter.
When detectives arrive at the Whitaker home, they find Kent Whitaker hanging on to life.
EMS personnel had went in. They had taken vitals for Kevin Whitaker, and he was pronounced deceased. Patricia Whitaker was flown by helicopter to a Houston hospital, and we were told she died en route to the hospital. Bart Whitaker had been shot. He was being medically treated by EMS. 2 people were shot, another 2 people were dead. So we knew within the first hour that it was a double murder.
Kent Whitaker and his son Bart are rushed to a nearby hospital. Detectives quickly arrive to get a statement from Bart, since he is the only one conscious. Bart tells them that the family had just arrived home from their celebratory dinner when he realized he forgot something.
Bart Whitaker had reported that he had actually walked out to his truck to retrieve a cell phone. But when the rest of the family was entering the house, there was a guy that was inside that house. So he heard the gunshots. Bart reported he had chased the shooter through the home and out the back of the house and been shot by the offender. We had had several home invasion robberies. So the thought initially was, are they connected? Was this just a home invasion that went bad?
But something doesn't quite add up.
Probably the biggest thing that stuck out to us was every drawer in the rooms were pulled out exactly even with each other.
So this burglar basically purposely, I'm gonna pull out every drawer about this, so it'll make it look like I was trying to look for stuff. But you weren't looking for anything. You were just pulling out drawers. The officers immediately knew that.
To the investigators, seems to have the hallmarks of a staged burglary. Nothing appears to have been stolen.
There were electronics, there were computers, there was TVs. There was a Rolex watch that was found. There didn't appear to be anything taken. So things didn't add up exactly to being some type of burglary.
Burglars come in and leave within minutes. They smash everything they can, pick up everything in 3 minutes. That's what happens. They don't sit there and wait for people to come home and walk in through the front door and shoot them. It just doesn't happen.
While investigators try to make sense of why the Whitakers were gunned down, they realize they have another pressing matter in front of them.
We had a vague description of a dark figure that ran up through the back of the house. And now this person is loose in the neighborhood. So are they on foot? Did they get picked up by a car? Did they drive a car there and now they've driven away? Or are they hiding in someone's backyard and they've already shot 4 people? The public's in danger, and we were in a very tough spot. Where is he, or where could he be?
Police try to unravel a bewildering attack
I crawled around for a bit. I really didn't know where I was hit. It just felt wrong.
and discover details of an inconceivable plot.
I was at the police station late one night, and there was a knock on the back door.
Do you have any idea who did the shooting?
Who did the shooting?
All the puzzle pieces just immediately connected, and realizing, gosh, the worst possible explanation for this is true.
As police in Sugar Land, Texas begin investigating the shooting at the Whitaker home, news travels fast in the tight-knit community.
I got a call from a friend. He's like, hey, there's been an incident, there's been a shooting. It was Kevin who had passed away, and Trisha had passed away as well. It was the most horrendous thing possible. And so at that moment, there's so much happening, you can't reconcile anything. You can't process, you can't grieve. It's just all hell's broken loose. December 10th, 2003 was a day that is burned in my memory.
I don't feel like I ever did process it. I just kind of did what I had to do and kept moving forward. It was just shocking. Sugar Land is incredibly safe. It's the kind of place where you don't even hesitate to take a walk at 3 a.m. They definitely made me more aware of my surroundings, of what's capable from people.
You know, the first question is what happened? What went down? And then why?
Detectives are urgently pursuing those answers at the Whitaker home. As they search through the house, they find a weapon and 4 empty shell casings.
There was a gun that was found in the kitchen area, which was odd. It's probably the murder weapon. Usually we don't find that the offender leaves the murder weapon on the scene. But it was an advantage for us, because now we had the possibility maybe for fingerprints, for DNA, for other types of evidence that could be recovered from this gun. In one of the upstairs rooms, nothing in that room appeared to be touched at all, except for there was a small gun safe. It had been pried open. You could see pry marks around the frame. It was empty.
The gun safe was a small little box, maybe a foot by foot, tucked into a hidden area. Whoever did this knew what to look for and knew what was in the safe.
The discovery leads the investigators to question how familiar the killer was with the Whitaker family and their home.
It was odd that someone had this small gun safe out of this whole big house. Why weren't the computers disturbed? Why weren't the TVs taken? That just didn't make sense. So our job was to try to find out who, how many people were involved with this.
Most people are killed by people who know them. 78, 80%. It's very strange you have stranger on stranger. It just doesn't occur that much.
Three days after the murders, police are still scouring the evidence for leads on a motive or suspect when Bart Whitaker is discharged from the hospital. His father, Kent, is still in intensive care.
Up this way.
Despite the trauma he's just endured, Bart agrees to assist detectives by returning home to relive that terrifying night. The investigators hope he can remember something that will lead them to the killer.
It's 7:54 p.m. Officer DuBose is going to be playing the part of the suspect, and I'm turning it over to Bart for his direction of everyone.
We went through the crime, trying to figure out exactly what happened.
I was here when I was calling 911. I might have fallen forward.
Okay.
Right after I was shot.
Okay.
I crawled around for a bit. It felt... I really didn't know where I was hit. It just felt wrong. I mean, I couldn't move. My arm, I tried to push off before, and my arm wasn't working. I thought maybe I was hit in the side because it burned.
So he went out the back door? Did you see him leave that back door?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't remember.
They had him reenact the scene. And people generally, when it comes to crimes, they try to be very specific. Like he was standing here or something like that. And his was, well, I don't remember, it was this way, or could have been this way.
When the shot was fired, did you see any flashes of light?
I don't remember.
You ever physically make contact with the suspect?
I don't think so. I don't know what I was trying to do. I know I was just trying to grab him. I don't think I got to him.
He was very vague about things you think he would remember.
At that point, we had no leads. We had just a family of 4 that had been shot, 2 that were deceased.
They came home at the wrong time, in the wrong place. That's the story that you typically hear, right? That's the initial reaction. It's just incredibly unfortunate, right? How does this even occur in Sugar Land?
Detectives investigating the murders of Tricia Whitaker and her son Kevin in Sugar Land, Texas, believe their killer was familiar with the Whitaker home and may not have been trying to rob them.
So we started doing a background on the family. The domestic relationship between Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker was nothing but perfect that we could find out. And every friend or family that we had interviewed said they had a great relationship.
Detectives turned their focus on the Whitakers' murdered son, 19-year-old Kevin.
Was he targeted for some reason? Was he involved in something that he shouldn't have been? But he had no criminal history. As we were interviewing friends and family members, Kevin seemed to be a good kid, and he was a tragic victim.
Detectives also take a closer look at the other Whitaker son, 23-year-old Bart, who was wounded in the attack and is their primary witness. It was his graduation from college that was being celebrated shortly before the murders.
Bart was supposed to graduate that coming Saturday. So we contacted Sam Houston State University, and we were told he wasn't graduating. As a matter of fact, he was a freshman as far as their academic rating, and he had like a 1.4 GPA. So we had a story that he was giving us that wasn't matching reality.
He was lying about going to school for the past 3 years. And so they zeroed in on him.
It sure seemed at the time it was too coincidental that this big family event had occurred, and then they get home from this event and they're all shot. So was Bart involved with what had happened? Was he not involved? We had to gather evidence.
Investigators want to keep what they've learned about Bart Whitaker under wraps until they can either clear him or tie him to the murders. But a local newspaper covering the case has also learned of his deceit and runs the story. Bart's father, Kent, still recovering in the hospital, is stunned and can't understand why Bart would lie.
Kent's response to it was, why didn't he tell us this? I just wish he would have, let the music stop and confess this to us.
How could you not know your kid's not going to college? So you sit there and think, what kind of relationship did they actually have?
"6 days after the murders of his mother and brother, his father joined more than 1,000 friends and family at the funeral.
Gosh, that was a brutal day. I remember seeing Kent and Bart sitting on the front row and watching them, and what are they thinking? What are they feeling? Just gutted for them and heartbroken for them.
had multiple detectives that were there. We had actually had some recording devices that were placed around the area because there could be comments made. Because sometimes the parties involved go to the funerals, but we didn't find anything at all.
As the family mourns, Sugar Land police continue to focus on the questions that have arisen about Bart.
We had discovered that Bart had some involvement with the criminal justice system already. We had found a 2001 incident report from the Waco Police Department that there was a female subject that was in an apartment with Bart Whitaker, and she overheard him talking about wanting to kill his dad. We had an officer that actually went out to the house. It was early in the morning and made contact with both Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker and told them why he was there. But they didn't believe Bart would be involved with something like that.
Later on, when the father finally talks, he says, we're just talking about the Menendez brothers. It wasn't anything serious at all. And so the father just believes him. And that's it.
In the days after the murders, life seems to return to some semblance of normalcy for Bart and his father, at least from the outside.
And they were still living in the same house together where two of their family members died, and the suspicion is growing that Bart was involved.
And it wasn't life as normal, but from the outside, it was a dad and a son who had gone through this tragic event, locking arms and leaning into one another.
We had to determine how much are we going to tell Mr. Whitaker, because his life still could be in jeopardy with Bart still being around. We didn't tell him everything. We tried to be as honest as we could with him.
There were maybe a few times that Kent would say, hey, they're still trying to find the guy, or they're still looking into it.
Mr. Whitaker was in a very hard position at that point. Slowly, kind of the bow's starting to unravel here, where there's information about his only living son that, at least initially, isn't adding up.
Police know Bart Whitaker didn't pull the trigger, but they strongly suspect he is involved in the murders of his family.
Bart was very manipulative with friends, and that was information that we received as the investigation went on. That's when the intensity ramped up into trying to identify who does he currently hang around with and where were they at on December 10th of 2003. This is not the all-American family that everybody might think they are.
Detectives in Sugar Land, Texas suspect Bart Whitaker knows more than he's saying about the murders of his mother and brother, and in fact, may be involved in the crime. But they have been unable to find any solid evidence supporting their suspicions. Then, a week after the murders, as investigators contemplate their next move, an unexpected visitor drops by the police station.
The lead detective was at the police station late one night, and there was a knock on the back door. It was a gentleman by the name of Adam Hipp.
Adam Hipp tells the detective that he briefly went to college with Bart Whitaker, and he wants police to know that Bart's statement about killing his parents in 2001 was far from the joke he claimed it was.
He said, listen, Bart Whitaker talked to me about killing his family before, back in 2001.
Adam tells police that Bart claimed once his parents and brother were dead, he would receive all of the family's assets, including their home and life insurance policies worth over $1 million. He says Bart offered him a cut if he would be his trigger man.
The detective had Mr. Hipp actually draw a map that showed where he was supposed to stand inside the house, and he would shoot the family members as they walked in. And that's exactly what happened on December 10th, 2003. Adam Hipp started working for us. We had him make recorded phone calls with Bart Whitaker to get him to talk about the crime.
Detectives coach Adam to tell Bart he knows he killed his parents, and then threaten to go to the police with this information unless he receives $20,000.
And that's when Bart Whitaker says, yeah, I can pay you. I can pay you some money, basically.
Bart never really came out directly and said, I did it, but there were enough indicators there.
My opinion, we had probable cause to arrest Bart Whitaker on basis of what we had with Adam Hipp coming in. We did have that. Did we have enough to prosecute him and convict him? No. We didn't have any details.
But Adam Hipp's call to Bart points the investigators to someone else who may be able to help them build their case.
When Adam Hipp is on the phone, Bart Whitaker mentions Chris Brashear. And what is Bart Whitaker? Chris is going to keep his mouth shut.
Adam tells police that Chris Brashear is a former roommate of Bart's. Detectives track down Chris and bring him in for questioning.
Well, first of all, I appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, man.
After establishing the relationship between Bart and Chris, detectives hone in on the night of the murder.
Do you have any idea who did the shooting?
Who did the shooting?
Yeah, any ideas at all?
And I mean, it's a pretty gross incident to me. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean, it's kind of a blunt question.
Has Bart ever approached you about killing his family?
No.
He's
Yeah.
never talked to you about that or anything like that?
No.
Never even joked around about it?
No.
So, did you go anywhere that night?
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
Went to set. Hooters?
Who?
Yeah, that's right.
And it was you and Steven?
It was, yeah, Steven, his girlfriend, and myself. Yeah.
Investigators believe that Chris Brashear is lying to them. They learn that Steven is Steve Champagne, another former roommate of Bart's. And if Chris is providing Steve as a false alibi, detectives consider whether he might be involved as well.
Steve Champagne is enlisted in the Marines. We're looking at cell phone records, financial records. So who is communicating with who?
Police quickly locate Steve and bring him in for questioning.
Now, they say they don't know anything about it. They denied anything. So at least that's where they start.
Finally, as pressure grows, the story begins to change.
I think Steve Champagne, his conscience finally got to him. Then he let out a little information about when maybe I was involved.
Do you feel partly responsible?
Oh, yeah.
Stephen Champagne changed his story and confessed.
Steve tells the detectives that Bart convinced him and Chris Brashear to join a plot to kill his family, so he could inherit his parents' fortune. Steve admits he was the getaway driver, and Chris Brashear was the trigger man.
He had taken Chris Brashear over to the house, parked his car a street or two over behind the house. Chris hid inside the house and shot the family members as they walked in on December 10th of 2003.
Did Chris say where he found the gun in the house?
No, I remember hearing something about a safe or something like that, but I don't know for sure.
Who do you think is the most responsible?
Probably Chris for shooting him. I mean, Bart planning it, yeah.
The big piece of information, evidence-wise, that Steve was able to provide to us is they had a bag that had a lot of evidence from the crime, walkie-talkies, water bottle, ammunition, that they tossed into Lake Conroe.
This is a big lake, man-made lake. They throw that in there. Now, what would be the odds of somebody being able to find that?
Steve Champagne, a suspect in the murders of Tricia and Kevin Whitaker, claims a bag full of crucial evidence was tossed into Lake Conroe, 50 miles north of Houston, and agrees to the spot.
The police department with their scuba tank, they go out and look for it. In water, you can't see your hand in front of you. They found the damn thing.
Inside the bag, detectives find the tool used to break into the Whitakers' gun safe.
They even found the pry bar, and they managed to match it up by the scrape marks. They even found the cell phone they were using. Now, you tell me what kind of police work that is. God bless.
There was DNA that was recovered. That was CRISPR shears from a water bottle. There was ammunition that was consistent with the ammunition that was involved that killed the family. Tangible physical evidence that links these individuals to this crime.
With the evidence now in hand, detectives have what they need to confront Bart. But he's nowhere to be found.
Bart Whitaker's Tahoe was found in an apartment complex in Houston. Both of the doors were found open. We sent detectives to the scene. We believe he's on the run.
We just lost him. People don't run when they're innocent. They really don't. Flight is a very good indication of guilt.
Kent Whitaker told us that there was money that was taken from the house. So Bart had some money to survive. Our job was now to figure out where he was.
The news of Bart's disappearance is one more shock for his friends and family, already devastated by the murders.
That was the big kind of aha moment, was when Bart left. So that's really when everything, all the puzzle pieces just immediately connected. And I realized, gosh, the worst possible explanation for this is true.
It's too much to really break it down into a coherent single thought. Shock, disgust, and disbelief almost. That someone could plot and plan out something like this.
Police send out a nationwide alert to be on the lookout for Bart Whitaker. With the cash taken from his home, he could be anywhere. Meanwhile, Steve Champagne and Chris Brashear are charged with first-degree murder for the deaths of Tricia and Kevin Whitaker.
These were kids that came from great backgrounds, but were manipulated by Bart Whitaker to kill his family. And they went along with it because Bart had promised them a cut in his inheritance. And he had told them that, hey, it's going to take a little while, but I am going to give you some money.
For months, there are no leads to Bart's whereabouts.
So we worked with Crime Stoppers to put out that we were looking for the whereabouts of Bart Whitaker.
There's a Crime Stoppers award of $10,000. If you get information that leads to this arrest, we'll pay you 10 grand.
18 months after the murders, police get a call from a man named Rudy Rios.
Rudy Rios said that he had known Bart Whitaker and he knew where Bart Whitaker was because Bart Whitaker had assumed his identity and he went to Mexico.
Rudy Rios claims Bart paid him $3,000 to be transported to Mexico, and that Bart has been living there for more than a year.
Bart Whitaker shacks up with a female and begins a relationship with her.
Mexican officials agree to cooperate with American law enforcement. Almost 2 years after the murders, they track Bart down, and on September 24, 2005, he is returned to the U.S.
We call up Ken Whitaker and said that he's going to be getting out of Mexico, but there was no deals made whatsoever. They just got him out. Put him back here and put him in jail. We had already made a decision. The only person we were seeking the death penalty was the mastermind, Bart Whitaker.
But Bart's defense attorneys work to thwart the possibility of a death sentence. At the heart of their strategy is Kent Whitaker.
Mr. Whitaker did not want the state of Texas to put his son to death, which is usually just kind of a reverse of roles where the family wants the maximum.
To forgive somebody of doing the most horrendous thing possible serves as a model of forgiveness. Something I think about all the time.
His standard was, I believe he's changed, and I'm going to forgive him. My standard is, he hasn't changed, and you can't forgive him.
All rise.
Bart Whitaker's capital murder trial begins on March 3, 2007, some 3.5 years since the killings at his family's home.
In my opening statement, I told the jury panel, you're about to hear a tale of subterfuge, deception, and greed, which will lead you to one conclusion, that Bart Whitaker had his family murdered. And that's the only conclusion he got.
Prosecutors put admitted getaway driver Steve Champagne on the stand. He explains how Bart outlined his murder for cash scheme.
The conversation was about when the family came back from eating dinner, that Chris would be in the house and shoot them.
The jury hears that Bart staged a fight with the gunman, and they'd agreed in advance Bart would be shot in the arm to divert suspicion. The trial lasts 6 days before the case goes to the jury on March 8, 2007. They deliberate for just an hour and a half before coming to a unanimous decision.
The guilty verdict was very quick.
Now the jury must decide whether Bart Whitaker should live or die.
Call your next witness. Bart Whitaker. He needs to be sworn, Your Honor.
Bart didn't testify during his trial, but now, in the penalty phase, makes a last-ditch effort to save his life.
Please stand before the clerk and be sworn.
Bart Whitaker has been convicted of murdering his mother and brother. Now he's trying to convince the jury not to sentence him to death.
Was testifying, I actually had the defendant admit that he had no reason to hate his parents, but he did it anyway.
The only people I've ever hated, and I know it was not for the right reasons, but the only people I ever hated were my parents and my brother.
The prosecutor confronts Bart with his family's final moments, the photos taken by his father at the celebration for Bart's supposed graduation. He tells the jury one photo from that night is particularly disturbing.
He shoots a finger at him while he's doing it. Now, some people don't make that much of it. I'm sitting there going, you understand something? He's shooting a finger at him knowing they're going to be dead. It's very chilling.
The jury deliberates for 10 hours before sentencing Bart Whitaker to death.
It's a hard question, and people have a lot of opinions about it because they're removed from it. But when you know the people and you've been involved with them, and definitely as intimately involved with this entire murder as I was, you see things a little different. Because I believe Bart should have received the death penalty.
Bart's accomplices agree to plea deals. Triggerman Chris Brashear is sentenced to life behind bars, and Steve Champagne, the getaway driver, receives a lighter 15-year sentence for cooperating as a key witness.
How do you even begin to broach that conversation with someone? Like, there's no icebreaker for, hey, will you help me kill my family? It's brought me to the conclusion that evil is real, very tangible, and it has a long plan behind it, and I truly think Bart was evil.
Over the next decade, Kent Whitaker remarries and builds a new life. He continues to fight to get his son's death sentence commuted.
Kent Whitaker never said he was okay with what Bart did. He always said he should be punished, okay? But he didn't like us seeking the death penalty. That was it.
When are exhausted, his execution is scheduled for 6 p.m. on February 22nd, 2018. Then, with just 30 minutes until Bart is set to die, Texas Governor Greg Abbott grants him clemency.
And left, and I found on the news that they commuted his life.
I'll never forget the night that the news came out. I never forget that moment of seeing Kent break down. Man, it was over a decade of emotions. For me, I was on the side of commuting the sentence. Should he ever see the light of day? Absolutely not. That's a no-brainer.
One day, Kent's gonna die. And Bart will have no one left fighting for him, talking to him, coming to see him. And he'll have to live the rest of his life suffering like that. So I think he would have gotten off easy with the death penalty in this regard.
Trisha was gold. I find myself getting emotional thinking back to her. She cared for us. She loved us. She was invested in our lives. I miss Trisha dearly. I'm gutted that Kevin is gone. You know, Kevin was not a typical 18, 19-year-old, right? He wasn't a typical high schooler. He was always wiser than us. There was something in the yearbook our senior year. It was most likely to succeed, most athletic. His was who was the best, most humble, highest integrity human being, and it was Kevin. I started thinking about where would Kevin be now? I think that's what I still probably grieve, is not having that friendship for life.
That was basically my home. My parents had all the knickknacks from like games to movies. It was basically a playground. I absolutely loved it. I hear 4 loud shots.
Someone is a robber or a pumpkin.
Does he have a gun?
Yes. He's got my pen.
I remember it coming over the radio, kind of in disbelief. Michael got along with everybody. He was on the good side of everybody.
Between you and me, brother, they were crooked people.
He had a large sum of money. Really, anybody could have followed him and figured out where he was going to be and when.
Maybe everyone else in there was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
September 20th, 2013, Danville, Kentucky. As dawn breaks, Michael and Angie Hawkinsmith arrive at the pawn shop they manage. ABC Gold Games and more. Their baby daughter Naomi and 9-year-old son Andrew in tow.
The pawn shop, that was basically my home. We had all the knickknacks of a pawn shop, from like games to movies to all sorts of junk. It was basically a playground. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. It was simply amazing.
The Hawkinsmiths are always together, even on school days.
My mom was determined to educate me in a home setting.
When they first started to homeschool Andrew, they put homeschool in the middle of everything. So when Michael worked at the pawn shop, Angie would help him with things at the pawn shop. So Andrew would go in there, he would sit and study. He had his own little desk and everything. And they were always trying to spend time together.
The Hawkins-Smith family story starts a decade earlier, when Michael, working as a youth pastor in central Kentucky, meets a young woman as dedicated to her faith as he is.
He met Angie. And I think they got stuck together and they stayed that way. It's kind of like you didn't see one without the other.
Before long, Michael and Angie marry, and the family doubles in size.
Michael was on cloud 9. He just loved the idea that they would have a boy and a girl, and that their life would be complete.
My dad, he made things look so easy, and he was truly an amazing person. He would have a crowd of people, and he'd just be talking to somebody about something, and then he would just pick me up by the leg, throw me up in the air, and everybody'd be like, "Don't drop him." But he never dropped me. He always caught me by the leg and just put me down. My mom, of course, she was the pastor's wife, and so that's a big role to take. She was also a very sociable person, lovable person. She would always make friends with anyone and everyone.
He'd go preaching. Angie, she would sing. She constantly sang.
We went from church to church to church. It was simply amazing.
The family's journey eventually leads them to Danville, Kentucky in 2013.
They found a church here in Danville that they wanted to attend or get involved in. And when it comes to him in church, him being a parent, or anything he did, it was his whole heart or nothing.
Michael puts that same level of dedication into the part-time job he takes at a pawn shop to support the family while he preaches. Steve Devine, the owner of the pawn shop, quickly makes Michael a partner and lets him take over running the business.
He'd been working there for, maybe a year and a half before they opened the store that morning.
The morning of September 20th, 2013 starts out like any typical day. By 9 a.m., the pawn shop is open for business.
Once my dad got started, I did my own thing. I grabbed me a game system of some sort and started playing.
Within 15 minutes of opening, a regular customer enters the store.
The gold man, Dan Smith, came in.
Dan Smith, like Michael Hawkins-Smith, is a part-time pastor. He makes his money buying and selling gold at pawn shops and jewelry stores.
They was both at the desk conversating, dealing with money and whatnot.
Michael and Dan are haggling. Angie is rocking baby Naomi near the register. Andrew is testing out a video game. It's a routine morning. None of them are aware that these will be their final moments together.
Shortly after, this guy, he came in as well. And I was like, he's kind of weird looking. He starts to pull out a gun and kind of raises his voice a little bit and says, "Get on the ground." And we all did because we was petrified. Me, Mom, and my sister, all huddled up to a corner.
Andrew hears strange, high-pitched sounds as he watches the unthinkable. A man shooting at his mother, father, and Dan.
For me, it sounded like a dart gun. Dad was like, please stop. So that happened, and he started rolling around until he wasn't. He stopped. But then Dan Smith was next, and then he was going to go after us. And my mom, she told me, like, to go in the back with my sister. So I do. I crawl all the way back to the office, and I sit my sister on the couch. I'm sitting right beside her. Of course, shaken up and don't even know what's going on. I hear 4 loud shots. And I remember crawling over to the doorway and seeing that my mom was just laying there with a puddle of blood, big puddle of blood. And so I picked up the phone and called on it.
911, where's your emergency?
Someone is a robber at a pawn shop.
Someone's robbing the pawn shop?
And my parents got shot.
Where is the robber?
He's right here right now.
Investigators catch haunting glimpses of a calculating killer.
We were starting to get these little clips of the silver minivan circling the area.
You can tell the van is kind of waiting. The way the whole crime played out, I think that it could be something professional.
And hear the voice of the man who may be responsible for a triple murder.
Oh, nobody, none of this, because what does it make me look like? It makes me look like the perpetrator, see?
My parents got shot.
Where is the robber?
He's right here right now.
9-year-old Andrew Hawkinsmith makes a desperate 911 call as he hides with his baby sister in the back of his family's pawn shop after an armed robber opened fire on his parents and their customer.
The robber, does he have a gun?
Yes. He shot my parents.
Okay, can he see you?
I'm in the back right now.
You're in the back? So the robber's up front of the store?
Yes, but I don't know if he's here or not. But come quickly.
Where are your parents?
They're dead on the ground. Come here quickly because I'm afraid. Please hurry.
Okay, they're coming, okay?
I was just sitting there with my sister and hoping to God that these police come.
Danville Police Detective A.J. Mullins is one of the first to respond.
I remember it coming over the radio, kind of in disbelief. Is that what I really heard? And it's what everybody just dropped whatever we were doing. We got down there.
It takes police less than 6 minutes to arrive at the pawn shop.
They came very quickly, and I had walked to the door with phone in hand and sister in the other, and walking by these dead bodies of people that I loved. I was petrified. I didn't know what I was looking at. And out I walk with my sister.
When I arrived at the parking lot of the pawn shop up front, our captain at the time had come to my window and said, "We need you to get these kids out of here as soon as possible. We've got bodies inside. And they put them in my vehicle, and Andrew held Naomi on the way there to the police department.
At Danville PD, we actually only have 4 full-time detectives, and we take anything from a theft to a murder. So it was a huge case, so we needed all hands on deck.
I don't care how many times you've done it or seen it, there's nothing that truly prepares you for this.
After taking the Hawkinsmith children safely away from the crime scene, Detective Mullins rushes back to the pawn shop to join the investigation.
When you first walk into the door, there's a counter, glass counter. Angela's body was kind of in the corner near the register. And Michael was on the other side, where it looked like had been gold, some jewelry kind of laid out as if he was the one speaking to Dan at the time all this went down. And Dan, you could tell where Dan fell initially, and then someone had drug him back where it would be harder to see him.
You could see clearly the drag marks of blood leading in that direction.
And his briefcase was open on top of one of the tables.
Of course, we see tons of shell casings, but they, of course, also have a lot of guns that they're trying to sell that are within the pawn shop, ammunition that they're selling. So it really adds to the whole chaos of everything and not knowing at that point when you initially walk in what's going to be evidence.
When we go through the store, we're having to step around the blood, the shell casings, because we didn't want to step on anything like that. We had never seen anything like this.
There was so much evidence to collect and to process and to go through.
The victims had been shot multiple times, possibly after they were down. The only thing at that time that we could determine was that the spent casings appeared to be from a .22 caliber weapon.
An autopsy will later determine that Michael was shot 8 times in the legs, chest, and head. Angie was shot 3 times in the head. Dan was shot 5 times in the head.
Initially, you're thinking, okay, it's some kind of a robbery. We look at the register. There was still cash in the register.
One would speculate that the register would have been gone through for whatever money it had. So it did not appear that the motive was to rob the actual pawn shop. So that was definitely a red flag.
Obviously, as a police officer, we tried to do the best we could to get it solved as quickly as we could.
We're like, okay, what's going on? Is this more of a personal type issue going on? We're like, what do we have here? Is this something that it was a hit? Was it on Dan Smith? Was it for the Hawkinsmith? Was it all of them?
Police in Danville, Kentucky, investigating a triple murder, need to talk to their only eyewitness, 9-year-old Andrew Hawkinsmith. The frightened child and his baby sister Naomi have been taken to the police station while officers try to locate their next of kin.
They had sat me down and was like, do you have anyone that we could contact so that way they can take you home? And I was like, I don't know, because I didn't know phone numbers. I remember being very shooken up because I was like, where am I gonna go?
And I went back to the police station and interviewed Andrew. Andrew was able to give us a good description of the bad guy.
He looked like a heavy-set dude and like a beard that didn't really look like an authentic beard.
He said, you know how at Halloween when people wear fake beards, there's little tabs
and he had sunglasses and a cap.
And the suspect, he wore black latex gloves and camouflage coat.
Andrew also provides crucial details about the weapons used in the attack.
Andrew went in the back office, and as he's running, he could hear shots being fired. And he says they sounded different.
I remember him making a sound like...
And one of our officers got his silencer, and we showed it to Andrew, and it said, "Did it look like this?" And he said, "Yes, that's exactly what it was."
The use of a silencer raises frightening concerns for detectives.
The way that just the whole crime played out, I think that it definitely could be a possibility, that it could be something professional.
As detectives consider whether they are hunting for a professional hitman, word of the shooting reaches Michael Hawkinsmith's mother at her home across town. She rushes to the pawn shop.
When I got there, I knew it was not good. I got out of the car and some of the officers met me halfway up the alley. And I said, "I want to see my son." "You can't. You need to go to the police station and see your grandbabies." There's nothing, no worse in this world than to lose a child. But if it hadn't been for Andrew and Naomi, I don't think I would have survived it.
Police locate the family of the third victim, Dan Smith, and break the awful news to them that same day.
I was in college, and I get this call from my stepmom, and I could tell from her voice that something was going on. And I couldn't believe what she was saying, and said, "What? Like, what?" And I just froze. I just couldn't believe he was gone.
I just couldn't understand, what I was being told. I just couldn't comprehend.
He was such a giver, financially a giver. He was a giver of his time, his energy, his kind words.
As the victims' families try to cope with the devastating news, investigators back at the crime scene are continuing to dig for clues. They canvass the area around the pawn shop and find a promising lead.
We found a witness. He saw a heavy-set, tall, white male coming out of the pawn shop. Described him as having a beard, and he went around to the little alleyway, and there was a van that pulled out of the alleyway and turned right.
The description given was a silver minivan.
The pawn shop doesn't have a security camera, but many other businesses in the area do.
So we reviewed camera footage in the area, and we actually spotted a silver van matching that exact description passed by where the pawn shop's located. We are able to track the silver van basically through town with that video. You can just catch it, drive right by it, it matches the description perfect, right? And then right after that, we see the sliver of it pass there. So you can tell the van is circling this area and kind of waiting.
The detectives cannot make out the van's license plates, but the footage convinces them that the unidentified driver was staking out the pawn shop, or someone inside. Investigators focus on who might have been the target and why.
Well, we started looking at the Hawkinsmiths, who they might have had dealings with.
Of course, you find that they're just a loving, good family. no criminal history and no reason for anybody to want to harm the Hawkinsmiths.
Detectives also take a closer look at the Hawkinsmiths' business.
Steve Devine was a co-owner of the actual pawn shop in partnership with the Hawkinsmiths.
So we go and talk to him, and turns out he was actually supposed to be there that day.
The detectives learned that Steve Devine knew the Hawkinsmiths were scheduled to do a gold deal with Dan Smith that morning.
He said that he woke up because of something with his allergies. And he called him and he told him that he wasn't going to make the meeting. So we're like, well, you know, that's what we call a flag.
The detectives must now consider whether Steve Devine purposely avoided the pawn shop that morning because he knew what was going to happen.
It was definitely concerning that the owner of the business, who was supposed to be there, ironically just didn't show up because of allergies.
Detectives investigating a triple murder in Danville, Kentucky are looking into Steve Devine, the business partner of victim Michael Hawkinsmith.
He was supposed to be there and wasn't. And so we're like, you know, what's going on here?
Steve tells police he was sick and with his wife all morning.
We were checking him out and confirm that he's telling us the truth.
His alibi clears him, but their interview with Steve provides detectives with a new direction for the investigation.
He was able to fill the little holes as to what was going on in the pawn shop.
Dan Smith was a gold buyer. So he carries a briefcase with him with a large amount of cash.
Dan Smith's wife was able to tell us that he would do a certain route on certain days of the week. So he goes to his bank, he gets the money, and then he had a lot of pawn shops that he went to.
He'd have anywhere from $30,000 to $100,000, and he went to known businesses on known days. So really anybody could have followed him and figured out where he was going to be and when.
We're thinking maybe he was the actual target, and everyone else in there was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Investigators visit the other pawn shops where Dan did business and ask to see footage from their security cameras.
And then once we started following Dan Smith, we were able to say, you know, boom, he was here at this time on this date, like clockwork.
So this is Dan Smith. This is a pawn shop in Lexington he goes to.
You're trying to look for anything, any odd vehicles that may be following, anyone within the store that may be paying him any particular attention, anything like that.
As they review the tapes, detectives find video from the last pawn shop Dan Smith visited before heading to the Hawkinsmiths.
This is where Dan Smith arrives at Lawson's Jewelers in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. Be around quarter after 8, 8:20.
He walks in with that same briefcase and then talks to the lady behind the counter and just appears very relaxed, laughing, has no idea, obviously, where he's headed. I don't even think it was a full hour after this. Dan Smith was killed.
It's kind of odd when you're watching this. This is the guy's, last moments. He doesn't know it. Nobody knows what's getting ready to happen except for one person.
Investigators scour the footage for any indication of who that one person might be.
There was nobody that appeared to be paying any particular attention to him. Mind you, the video was pretty narrowly focused, coming out of the one store. so we couldn't see his full motions once he crossed the street. But reviewing that video at the time, there was nothing that stood out.
We really were kind of baffled at this point. Who was even the target?
4 days into the investigation, there's no clear target, no clear motive, and nothing pointing to the identity of the gunman described by 9-year-old Andrew Hawkinsmith.
We were getting ready to figure out what our next step was, and this phone call came in to the police department from Michigan. And we're like, Michigan, now what do we have here?
The caller from Michigan identifies himself as a pastor. He tells police about someone in the Kentucky area who knew the victims and has been making suspicious comments.
The pastor from Michigan relayed that he was friends with an individual by the name of Kenneth Allen Keith, and that he had communicated with Kenneth Allen Keith and got on the subject about the murders in Danville.
The pastor explained that Kenneth Allen Keith knew the Hawkinsmiths, and that Kenneth Allen said, talking about the Hawkinsmiths, that they're not innocent either.
This pastor had said Mr. Keith just switched like a light switch, that something set him off, and he said that they had cost him a lot of money.
And so I think that statement alone really stood out to him, because, you look at they are innocent people, right? He's concerned that potentially his friend, Kenneth Allen Keith, could be involved in this triple homicide. The call was what kind of turned the whole investigation around, when we realized that it could be the Hawkinsmiths that were actually targeted.
Four days after the murders of Michael and Angie Hawkinsmith and Dan Smith, police learned that a man named Kenneth Allen Keith has been making suspicious comments about the Hawkinsmiths.
Once Kenneth Allen's name was mentioned, we started looking, okay, who is this guy?
He was involved in the pawn shop business. He had one in Somerset, Kentucky. And he was a pastor of a small town church in Pulaski County, Kentucky. He appeared to be loved by his local congregation.
That was kind of a common denominator for everybody involved, as they were all heavily into the church, either as pastors, ministers, leaders, just in a church.
But the investigators quickly discover that Kenneth Allen Keith appears to have a different style of preaching than the other pastors.
We found one of his sermons that he had on YouTube, where he's on the pulpit and he's got a rifle with a sling on. And he's talking about his past, what he's done. And we're like, okay, we have a sniper here. And the further that we looked into Kenneth Allen, the more we're like, oh, this is a good lead.
So when we start looking into Kenneth Allen Keith, we look into his financial history. And we learned that he had recently been sued by Steve Devine. And so he owed Steve Devine money.
Police learned that Steve Devine, the co-owner of the pawn shop with Michael and Angie, had been in business with Kenneth Allen Keith before putting the Hawkinsmiths in charge 4 months earlier. Prior to that, the Hawkinsmiths had actually been Kenneth Allen Keith's employees.
Kenneth felt cheated. He felt that that pawn shop should have been his. And that Steve Devine and the Hawkinsmiths basically stole it right out underneath his feet.
So we felt that would be a good motive. that would make someone upset. Upset enough to kill someone? We didn't really know the personality or what was really within Kenneth Allen Keith at that time.
But as they dig deeper into Kenneth Allen Keith, detectives uncover what could be another crucial link between him and the murders.
It ended up that there was a silver/gray minivan that was registered and associated with him.
The same kind of vehicle seen on surveillance video speeding away from the crime scene. While all of the evidence is starting to align around Kenneth Allen Keith, investigators know everything they have is only circumstantial. To help them build a more solid case, they reach out to the pastor in Michigan who initially tipped them off to Kenneth and recruit him to help their investigation.
At this point, we want a step further, so arrangements are made to actually record phone calls.
On October 9th, 2013, the Michigan pastor calls Kenneth Allen Keith while the police listen in to see if he says anything incriminating.
When somebody's being murdered in such a heinous way as what this was, you want to make them, out to be saints. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But between you and me, brother, they were crooked people.
Is that right?
They went into it with the whole point from day one to take over that business from me. I don't mean to speak ill.
No, hey, man.
Facts are facts.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I can't tell nobody none of this because what does it make me look like?
Yeah.
It makes me look like the perpetrator, see?
And during that phone call, he was able to kind of go over what he was doing that day, what his location was, how he wasn't involved.
I was in Danville, but I was at the pharmacy. I'm standing in the pharmacy while all this happened.
We took that information and looked at the video surveillance, and we found that moments after the 911 call, Kenneth Allen Keith was entering the pharmacy in Danville. The timestamps from video gave us the indications on when it occurred, and from the pawn shop to the pharmacy, that was a doable time.
He was actually here at a local pharmacy just within minutes of the time of the murder, which we thought was unusual, to travel basically an hour to pick up a prescription when you have local pharmacies in your local community.
The detectives have no doubt. They are watching Kenneth Allen Keith just moments after committing a triple homicide.
Watching him and knowing that he had just killed 3 people, it's hard to fathom how somebody can just, take somebody's life and then act like it was nothing.
10 days after the murders, police believe they finally have enough to arrest Kenneth Allen Keith. Now, they need to track him down.
We tracked his phone, and we were able to actually see that he had went to Florida.
And when we knew he was on his way back, we were setting up our game plan, what we were going to do, that we were going to have a search warrant at the church, a search warrant at the home where he lived with his family, and a search warrant at the pawn shop in Somerset, Kentucky. And that's when we make our move.
October 9th, 2013. Danville, Kentucky police are waiting as Kenneth Allen Keith, the prime suspect in the murder of Michael and Angie Hockensmith and Dan Smith, returns home from a trip to Florida.
He gets up the next morning from coming home, and he goes to his pawn shop. And that's when we make our move. An investigator went in as a potential customer and made contact with Mr. Allen. We didn't go in with guns drawn, anything like that, because pawn shops have guns in them, and we don't know where what is. And he came out from his office area, and they were able to basically tell him, we've got a search warrant for your pawn shop.
As police search his business, Kenneth Allen Keith is placed under arrest.
During the search of the pawn shop, we discovered a box for a threaded device that can be purchased over the internet that can be fashioned into a makeshift silencer.
The discovery confirms detectives' suspicions that a silencer was used in the killings and explains Andrew Hockensmith's description of a high-pitched sound as his parents were shot.
And then also outside of the business, we found spent .22 shell casings and then a target that had been shot. So we believe that he was practicing prior to the shooting.
The 22 casings found in Kenneth Keith's pawn shop matched all the expended shell casings from the murder scene in Danville, Kentucky. They were shot from the identical weapon.
There was evidence, obviously, that tied him to this case to make it a strong case.
Detectives confront Kenneth Allen Keith with the overwhelming evidence.
We are always trying to get an outright confession, but that did not happen.
We got the opinion that Mr. Allen thought that he was just so intelligent that he was going to beat all this, but he didn't know what we had found.
News of the arrest shocks Dan Smith's family. They know Kenneth Allen Keith and believed he was a good pastor and a friend.
Dad had a previous relationship with Kenneth Allen Keith. He would come in and he would buy and sell. They did business. You're going, wait a minute. That's not a real pastor. But to be able to commit murders on Friday and then get up on the pulpit Sunday morning and preach, especially in front of 2 children.
For Andrew Hockensmith, who hid for his life with his baby sister during the murders of his parents, the news comes as a relief.
I remember they was like, hey, Andrew, look at this, look at the news. And they showed me the newscast where they finally caught him. And I was like, all right.
Prosecutor Richie Bottoms believes he has all he needs to convict Kenneth Allen Keith on 3 counts of first-degree homicide.
I think the evidence spoke for itself. We felt very confident that we could convince the jury that he did this.
After initially announcing they would seek the death penalty, prosecutors decide to spare Andrew and his baby sister Naomi and Dan Smith's family the pain of a long trial. Instead, they offer Kenneth Allen Keith life without parole in exchange for a guilty plea.
We all come out on the short end of the stick, but that's okay. I don't have to answer for what he did. The man's going to have his own demons he's going to have to live with.
I want people to remember who our dad was. I want him to be remembered by the good things that he did for people. He was a very kind man, and he wanted to help. He wanted to help people, and he did.
I've been told you're a spitting image of your dad, and you look just like him, you act just like him. And my mom, I think Naomi, she looks just like my mom. I'm very thankful for what I have. And in a sense, it's like I am like living through my parents' life, or kind of like a reimagined one. My parents will always live on within me.
अल्फ अल्लाही ज़ात तू ऐ झोरे सदके जेड़ो कुल कायनात चलाण आलो अल्फ अल्लाही ज़ात तू झोरे सदके जेड़ो कुल कायनात चलाण आलो हुक्म उसके बाजना पतर अल्लाह ओ तेरो मेरो वजूद बनाण आलो 18,000 मखलूक गो ऐ मालिक सुनो रब सुनो जमीन आसमान आलो अर्श फर्श लो कलम महफूज कुर्सी जिया जून ना रिज़क खिलाण आलो दाल दुखांगी गल सो नौरे तमना एक बच्ची मासूम रोलाओ गई है दाल दुखांगी गल सो नौरे तमना एक बच्ची मासूम रोलाओ गई है ओ उसकी मारे गुलनाज है बहुत दुखिया मारा सीना माँ बर छिलाओ गई है नाओ बच्ची गो अफसा में मूद सोनो रोग उमरा गो सुनी लाओ गई है ओ जिला पुणछ गिरा शिंदरा सोनो ऐ दुखिया दिलाना अफजारो लाओ गई है दाल दर्द जो दयागा ऐ बोते ओ खाए पर बचागी नारे जो दई ओवे दाल दर्द जो दयागा ऐ बोते ओ खाए पर बचागी नारे जो दई होवे ओ माना सबर करार फिर नहीं रहा तो दख्ते जिगर की जद जो दई होवे बाप उसको मैं मुँह दियो सेन दुखिया अफसा जही बची सीने लाई होवे ओ दुख मुझ जावेद माँ बाप नावे ओ बचा किसे की नारे जो दई होवे तेरे हो रब गा कर तमाम होया 17 अप्रैल ना खुशी भरपूर होई रे हो रब गा कर तमाम होया 17 अप्रैल ना खुशी भरपूर होई ओ अल्लाह पाक ने दिती एक बच्चियों सोनी ऐ गुनाहगारां गी अर्ज मंजूर होई दिन मां दाखिल रही महारात 10 बजे ऑपरेशन होयो ते टेंशन दूर होई ओ दीती खबर फिर आनी उन डॉक्टरां ने होगी बची पर बड़ी कमजोरी होई सलाह दीती वीर डॉक्टर है कमजोर बच्ची ले गए बीच मशीन रखाओ दीती सलाह दीती डॉक्टर है कमजोर बच्ची ले गए बीच मशीन रखाओ दीती 18-19 तक रखी पुणछ अंदर और पर इकी नर जोरी कराओ दीती आई रात 9 बजे मामू आई नानी दोए गड्डी तरफ जोरी चलाओ दीती ओ मासा देरी ना लाई ले चल गया ओ 12 बजे जोरी पहुंचाओ दीती किसना चैन सकून फिरे आई उस दिन तो रास्ता बिच डाडा परेशान होया आई किसना चैन सकून फिरे आई उस दिन तो रास्ता बिच डाडा परेशान होया रात 12 बजे जोरी पुजया कि जल्दी डॉक्टरां कोल रवाने होया आई डॉक्टर नब्ज तके मुतू कि बोल न सके असली राज तू बे वो हैरान होया ओ अमानत रब की है तम सबर करियो ए आपसा बची गारू वे रवानी होया किसना होश रे ओ सुनी ये खबर जिस दम आया है आप जायमना छोड़ गई है ऐ किसना होश रे ओ सुनी ये खबर जिस दम आया है आप जायमना छोड़ गई है ये एम्बुलेंस करी वापस पुणछ चलना मारी किस्मत अज मुखरे मोड़ गई है आई गुल नाज वाणी अरे मान बाकी मेरी खुशी ना किंगा तू रोड़ गई है दाखिल बीच अस्पताल थी पुणछ अंदर ये मांगुल नाज गो दिल क्यों तोड़ गई है अप्रैल बईना सुबह गए 5 बजे वतन शींदरा पुजे आयान सदके अप्रैल बईना सुबह गए 5 बजे वतन शींदरा पुजे आयान सदके माना 10 बजे एम्बुलेंस आने तेरा तकन गाया अफजायर मान सदके ते कितना दुख था महंगा काल जामा जाने वाया रब रहमान सदके और वे बाप महमूद परवेज नानी नाले रोवे सजाद यमान सदके कफन दफन गो विलोणे यार गयो इना दुकाना उण मीटौरे किसरा कफन दफन गो विलोणे हार गयो इना दुकाना उण मीटौरे किसरा ओ जीता मांगे बचा गो टूर जानो इस शेर भर कलम चनो किसरा अच्छा रब वाले हुणे आई छोड़ गई है तीना सिना नाड़ूण लो किसरा सबर या तो नी दिल मां याद तेरी रोता दिला ना चुप करूं किसरा फिया मान इना दुखाने हई मुकणो नी 4 बजे रे अपना दफनाओ छोड़ी हई फिया मान इना दुखाने मुकणो नी 4 बजे रे अपना दफनाओ छोड़ी वतन पुणछ गिरा शींदरा अंदर ओ सोनी निकी जी कबर बनाओ छोड़ी सबर करियो महमूद गुल नाज दोए मानत रब गी रब ने छुपाओ छोड़ी ओए पिया मान जावे तू इजाजत ले ले जख्म मोड़ी भी क्यों रे दुखाओ छोड़ी